The 2014 film Annabelle has the perfect gift for me. John's pregnant wife, an antique doll dressed in a wedding gown. But not a horrible night. Members of a satanic cult invade their home and attack the couple, in addition to sowing terror and spill blood in its path, invoking a malevolent entity that will bring misfortunes to many and that has possessed the body. The true story of the Annabelle doll tells us that Annabelle was a doll gifted to a 27-year-old nurse by her mother in the 1970s. Shortly after, strange things began to happen, such as the doll changing possession on its own. What appeared in notes on the floor, asking for help, revealed that Annabelle was a 7-year-old girl who passed away in the apartment. And she created attention to feel loved. Chucky, the demonic doll from the classic 1988 horror film, reunites the likes of director Tom Holland and Chris Sarandon from the iconic Fright Night. On this occasion, the protagonist is the young Andy, to whom a doll is gifted, which he names Chucky. The problem is that Chucky has been the victim of a voodoo ritual and carries within him the spirit of a serial killer, which means he will not hesitate to kill people in order to transfer his soul into this little one. The film is inspired by the legend of Otto, a child who received a black magic doll named Robert from his maid, though there is no evidence the story actually happened. It seems that since then the child began to talk to himself, and the strangest things started to happen in the house. Otto even claimed that the doll was alive, and the neighbors even saw Robert peering out the window. The parents were trapped inside the doll in the attic. And as an adult, you either return to him, and supernatural events happened again. The deceased Otto Robert came into the hands of another girl, and it seems he attempted to murder her. The 2017 ritual. A group of friends at the university gathered to embark on a hiking trip through the mountains of Sweden to honor one of their own who died violently while in the forest. A threatening presence begins to haunt them. The ritual is inspired by the Five from Yuba City, a group of friends with mild disabilities or small psychiatric issues who, after attending a basketball game, disappeared. After some time, the 4 cadavers were found in a caravan camp in the high mountains. The last individual remains completely missing. One terrifying night in 1986, 4 characters gathered in an isolated house on the shore of Lake Geneva. Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, Mary Wollstonecraft, and Dr. Polly Dorito. They competed to the fullest to experience possible. There was indeed a candlelit vigil at the home of the poet Lord Byron, where Percy and his wife Mary Shelley, Claremont, and the doctor named John William Polidori convened. From this gathering emerged 2 classics of Gothic literature, Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, by Mary Shelley, and The Vampire by Polidori, a foundational novel of the modern vampire genre. Lizzie, the 2018 film directed by Greg Williams of Sundance, transports us to Fall River, a small town in Massachusetts during the summer of 1892, with its work on the film Lizzie. And his second wife appears to have been brutally murdered with an axe in their own home. At the time of the murder, his daughter Lizzie and the maid were present in the same residence, but both claimed to have seen and heard nothing. The film is based on the true story of Lizzie Ann Borden and the murder of her father, Andrew Jackson Borden, and his wife on the morning of August 4, 1892. Lizzie, the elder sister, was accused of a crime, but was acquitted due to lack of evidence to prove her guilt. However, the townspeople always considered her the mastermind behind the deaths and nicknamed her the Axe Murderer. The strangers from 2008, Vincent Mackey and James, returned to their summer home overnight and attend a friend's wedding reception. That same dawn, their life is upended when 3 people invade their home, cutting off any chance of escape. There are various theories about this film, written and directed by Brian Patino. On one hand, the director stated that he had been inspired by the Manson family murders and the novel Helter Skelter, which recounts these crimes. On the other hand, it is also said that 13, you are going to make an event out of your childhood. Supposedly, when you were a child, someone called at your door, asking for a person who did not live there. Sometime later, he would learn of a series of robberies perpetrated in homes where no one answered the door. The 1960s psychological thriller. A secretary commits a theft at the company where she works and flees to the city after a long drive, stopping and resting at a strange roadside motel. The Bates Motel, run by a very shy young man named Norman, was what was suggested. The character of Norman was inspired by a man who, a few years before the filming of the movie in 1957, made headlines for committing 2 murders. He spent the remainder of his days in a psychiatric institution, confined within the walls of the mental health care facility for the duration of his lifetime. The Texas Massacre, 1974. 5 friends gather in a van to visit the grave of one of their grandfather, and along the way, they pick up a hitchhiker who turns out to be a psychopath, a member of a bloodthirsty family from whom they will have to flee if they want to save their lives. Intense rawness close to the false documentary. There are disturbing and genuinely terrifying moments. A masterpiece of horror cinema that has inspired many creators. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was also inspired by the horrific history of grave robberies, murders, and terrifying crimes. The Queen's trajectory of the one who was nicknamed Butcher inspired several films such as The Silence of the Lambs or Disturbed. In 2007, David Fincher, a renowned thriller director, will tell the story of a San Francisco illustrator who investigates the infamous Zodiac Killer, a killer who terrorized Northern California with a series of murders in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Zodiac Killer was a real-life criminal who sent daily riddles, including the phrase, "Meet the newspaper cartoonist," for each of his crimes. A cartoonist later wrote a book about his investigations, which inspired the film. The identity of this killer was never discovered, a case that remains open 50 years later.
The Snake and the Rainbow. In 1988, an American anthropologist travels to Haiti to investigate whether the existence of a drug that followers of black magic use to turn people into zombies is true. There he will live a nightmare adventure and will have to face the tragic truth, the existence of zombies, many, many years of The Walking Dead or We Are Dead, and if you leave aside George's influence on Romero in his incredible Is Night of the Living Dead, Wes Craven. The director of Liam Street's Nightmare recovered in 1988 the story of UNED non-botanist Wade Davis, who traveled to Haiti to investigate his so-called care bus Narcissus was a zombie, as supposedly claimed. The priest of black magic made quite a few trips to Davis.